and welcome to another video brought to you by Dorkdom Gaming. Today we're going to take an in-depth look into the host of Slaanesh. So without further ado, let's begin. The one and only battalion is called the Demon Cohort of Slaanesh. It consists of one Keeper of Secrets, or Slaanesh Demon Prince, one Herald of Slaanesh, or Herald of Slaanesh on Exalted Secret Chariot, or Herald of Slaanesh on a Secret Chariot. Also includes 3 units of Daemonettes, and it also includes 1 unit of Seekers of Slaanesh, or Chariots of Slaanesh, or Exalted Secret Chariots of Slaanesh, or Hellflayers of Slaanesh, or Fiends of Slaanesh. Now the abilities are, whenever an enemy unit fails a battle shock test within 3 inches of any unit from the Demon Cohort of Slaanesh, you roll a dice for each of those units. On a roll of a 6, one model in that demon unit heals D3 wounds. If that unit was a Daemonette unit, you heal D6 wounds. Now, all models in the Demon Cohort of Slaanesh also adds 1 to their movement characteristics. Now, this battalion only costs 40 points. And if you wanted to be a themed army and you want to take all Slaanesh for 40 points to give yourself 1 extra move and to do some mortal wounds here and there, it is not bad. First war score we're going to talk about today is their Daemonettes of Slaanesh. They move 6. They have a 5-up save with Bravery 10 and 1 wound. Their close combat attack has a 1-inch range with 2 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, -1 rend and does 1 damage. The champion has 3 attacks rather than 2. If you have an icon bearer, if you roll a 1 when taking battle shock text, you actually gain back D6 Daemonettes. If you happen to have a Hornblower, your opponent must re-roll battle shock test of a 1 for units that are within 6 inches of any Hornblower. Your abilities are, Daemonettes can run and charge in the same turn. The next ability, each time you make a hit roll of a 6 for a Daemonette, you get an additional attack. If you have 20 or more models in your unit, you get an additional attack on a 5-up. Another ability, in the close combat phase, your opponent must reroll hit rolls of a 6 against any Daemonette units that are within 6 inches of a Daemonette hero. All your casters know the Summon Daemonette spell. It's a casting value of a 6, and you get 10 Daemonettes within 12 inches, but more than 9 inches away from your enemy. If you happen to roll 11 or more, you gain 20 Daemonettes. Now this war scroll is 120 points, and you get 10 models, upwards of a maximum of 30 models. This is a glass cannon unit. It only has a 5-up save, but the output attacks are tremendous, and you get more attacks if you have 20 or more models, you actually get even more attacks on a roll of a 5. If you only have less than 20 models, you get more attacks on a roll of a 6. If you can protect this unit and allow it to hit your opponent, it's going to do a tremendous amount of damage. So do yourself a favor, protect this unit, get it in combat, and destroy your opponent. Score we're going to talk about are the Hellstriders of Slaanesh. They move 16 inches with the 5-up save, Bravery 7 and 2 wounds. They have 2 close combat attacks they have to choose from. The first one is the Claw Spear, a 2-inch range with 1 attack, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, -1 rend and does 1 damage. The other one's called the Hell Scourge, a 3-inch range with 1 attack, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, no rend and does 1 damage. They all have the Steeds of Slaanesh, and they have a 1-inch range with 2 attack, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rend and does 1 damage. The champion has 2 attacks rather than 1. The icon bearer can pick between 2 different banners. If you have a Hornblower, you add 1 to the run and charge rolls. The abilities are the Soul Hunters. At the end of each combat phase, you roll a dice. If the result is lower than the number of models slain by this unit in this phase, the Hellstriders are gifted with intoxicating energies, and you add 1 to the attack characteristics of this unit's Claw Spears or the Hell Scourge for the rest of the battle. The next ability is the Impaling Strike. You can add 1 to the wound rolls for the Claw Spear in the same turn in which they charge. All of them have the Chaos Rune Shields. You roll a dice each time this unit suffers a mortal wound. On a 5 or 6, you ignore that wound. The first banner is, you can re-roll the dice to see whether you are gifted by the Intoxicating Energies, which again is the ability of the Soul Hunters. Also, the other banner is subtract 1 from the hit rolls of any enemy within 6 inches of this unit that contains this banner. Now, this war scroll is only 100 points, and you get 5 models. You can have up to 20 models in this war scroll. This war scroll is extremely fast. It moves 16 inches, and you can add 1 to the run and charge rolls for this unit. This unit doesn't pack a huge punch when it hits a unit. It is perfect, though, for going after those war machines or those low model count units. The next war score we're going to talk about are the Seekers of Slaanesh. They move 14 inches with a 5-up save, Bravery 10 and 2 wounds. They have their first melee attack, which is the Piercing Claws, a 1-inch range, 2 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, -1 rend and does 1 damage. Their Steeds have a 1-inch range with 2 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rend and does 1 damage. The champion has 3 attacks rather than 2. Their Icon Bearer. If you roll a 1 when taking your battle shock test, you add D6 Seekers back to your unit. Your Hornblower. Your opponent must re-roll battle shock test of a 1 when they're within 6 inches of your Hornblower. Your abilities are the Graceful Killers. Each time you make a hit roll of a 6 using your Piercing Claws, you make an additional attack. Your Quicksilver Speed. When the Seeker unit chooses to run, you roll 2 dice and add them together instead of rolling 1 dice. And this unit can run and charge in the same turn. The Locus of Swiftness. You add 1 to all charge and run rolls for this unit as long as it's within 12 inches of a Daemonette hero. All of your casters know the Summon Seeker spell. It's a casting value of 8, and you get 5 Seekers within 12 inches of your caster, but more than 9 inches away from enemy units. If you happen to roll 11 or more, you get 10 Seekers. Now this War Scroll is only 120 points, and you get 5 models. You can have upwards of 20 models. This is a glass cannon unit, but you get a turn 1 charge if you play it right. You can move 14 inches, you can run 2d6 inches, and you get +1 to your run and charge move as long as you have a Daemonette hero nearby. And this unit can charge if it runs. But again, it only has a 5-up save and only 2 wounds per model, so it's easy to destroy the Seekers. But if you can protect them and get them in quickly, oh, you're going to do some damage alright. The next war score we're going to talk about are the Seeker Chariots of Slaanesh. They move 12 inches with a 5-up save, bravery 10, and 6 wounds. They have 3 melee weapons. The first one are the whips, a 2-inch range with 3 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rain, and does 1 damage. The next ones are the claws, a 1-inch range with 2 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, -1 rain, and does 1 damage. The tongues, a 1-inch range, has 4 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rain, and does 1 damage. The abilities, the quick ability, whenever you choose to run, you move 6 inches no matter what you roll. The blades ability, after this unit makes a charge move, roll a dice for each enemy model within 1 inch. On a roll of a 4 or more, that model suffers a mortal wound. The grace ability, each time this model makes a hit roll of a 6 using the claws or the whips, you get to make an additional attack. All of your casters know the Summon Seeker Chariot special rule. A casting value of a 7, you get 1 Seeker Chariot within 12 inches of your caster, but more than 9 inches away from enemy models. This War Scroll only costs 80 points. You can have 1 or up to 3 Seeker Chariots. The Seeker Chariots are incredible. They're fast. They automatically move 6 inches when you decide to run. When you charge, every enemy model within 1 inch of this chariot on a 4 takes a mortal wounds before you even strike. Plus, this model generates even more attacks when you roll a 6. The only downside of this model is it only has a 5-up save, so protect it and it will do a ton of damage for you. The next war score, we're going to talk about the Hellflayers of Slaanesh. They have a 12-inch move with a 5-up save, bravery 10, and 6 wounds. They have 3 close combat attacks. The first one are the claws, a 1-inch range with 3 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, -1 rain, and does 1 damage. The next one are the whips, a 2-inch range with 4 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rain, and does 1 damage. The next one are the tongues, a 1-inch range with 4 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rain, and does 1 damage. The abilities are the grace. Each time you make a hit roll of a 6 with either your claws or your whips, you get an additional attack. The soul sense. After this unit has finished its charge move, roll a dice for each enemy model within 1 inch. For each roll of a 4, that model suffers a mortal wound. If any mortal wounds are caused by this way, you can re-roll failed hit rolls with the piercing claws or the whips until the end of that turn. All of your casters will know the Summon Hellflayer special rule. It's a casting value of a 7, and you get a Hellflayer of Slaanesh within 12 inches of your caster, but more than 9 inches away from an enemy unit. This War Scroll only costs 80 points, and you get 1 model. You can have a maximum of 3 models. Again, this model is going to put out a ton of damage against infantry due to their ability of the Soul Scent. Being able to do mortal wounds and then re-roll your hits before your opponent even gets to strike is awesome. Being able to generate more attacks is incredible. The only downside is a glass cannon. It has a 5-up save and only 6 wounds. So again, if you can protect this model, you're going to do a ton of damage. The next war score, we're going to talk about the Exalted Seeker Chariots of Slaanesh. They move 12 inches with a 5-up save, bravery 10, and 9 wounds. They have 3 melee attacks. The whips have a 2-inch range with 3 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rain, and does 1 damage. The claws, a 1-inch range with 6 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rain, and does 1 damage. The tongues, a 1-inch range with 8 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rain, and does 1 damage. The abilities, the unholy hues. Your opponent must add 1 to the result of any battle shock test made for this unit within 3 inches of the Exalted Seeker Chariots that have charged that turn. The blades. After this unit makes a charge move, you roll a dice for each enemy model within 1 inch. On a roll of a 4 or more, this model suffers D3 mortal wounds. The grace. Each time this unit makes a hit roll of a 6 with either its piercing claws or its whips, they get to make an additional attack. All of your casters will know the Summon Exalted Chariot special rule. A casting value of an 8, you get an Exalted Seeker Chariot within 12 inches of your caster, but more than 9 inches away from an enemy unit. This War Scroll costs 140 points, and you can have 1 of them, up to 3 of them. This War Scroll is awesome. Having the ability of destroying models, I don't know what else to say. Each model within 1 inch on a 4 more will suffer D3 mortal wounds. You throw this into a block and you have 8 models within 1 inch. You roll 8 dice, you roll 4 of them, you get 4 on average. You're doing 43 mortal wounds. This is before you even hit. Plus, your opponent must add 1 to the result of any battle shock test within 3 inches after they took all those mortal wounds. You're going to obliterate infantry units. Just protect this model. It only has a 5-up save, but it does have 9 wounds. The next war score we're going to talk about are the Fiends of Slaanesh. They move 12 with a 5-up save, bravery 10, and 4 wounds. They have 2 melee attacks. The Pincers have a 1-inch range with 4 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rend, and does 1 damage. The Stinger has a 2-inch range with 1 attack, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does D3 damage. The abilities: if the wound roll for a pincer attack is a 6 or more, the attack has a rend value of -2. The Musk: your opponent must subtract 1 from any hit rolls that target a Fiends of Slaanesh in the combat phase. The Grace: you can re-roll hit rolls of a 1 for this unit if it's within 6 inches of a Daemonette hero. Your casting: it's a casting value of a 6. You get a Fiend of Slaanesh within 12 inches of the caster but more than 9 inches away from enemy unit. If you happen to roll 11 or more, you get 3 Fiends of Slaanesh. This war scroll only costs 60 points and you get 1 Fiend to a maximum of 6 Fiends. The Fiends are fast, they're 12 inches, they're perfect for going on the flanks or going after specific targets like war machines. The next war score we're going to talk about is the Herald of Slaanesh, movement 6 with a 5-up save, bravery 10, and 5 wounds. He has 1 melee attack and it's the Claws. It's a 1-inch range with 6 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. He can choose to ride upon his steed, and if he chooses, he goes from 6 movement to 12 movement and gains a ton attack. His tongue attack is a 1-inch range with 2 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rend, and does 1 damage. His abilities are: whenever he makes his claw attacks and he rolls a 6 to hit, he makes an additional attack. Also, he has another attack ability called the Dodge ability, and he can reroll failed saves in close combat. All wizards know the summon Herald of Slaanesh. It's a casting value of a 5, and he gets 1 Herald of Slaanesh within 12 inches, but outside of 9 inches away from an enemy. This war scroll only costs 60 points. And a lot of your war scrolls depend on having a Herald of Slaanesh nearby. So this is almost like an auto take if you are doing a themed Slaanesh army. The next war scroll we're going to talk about is the Lord of Slaanesh on a demonic mount. Movement 16 inches with a 4-up save, bravery 8, and 7 wounds. He has 2 melee attacks. His first one is a 2-inch range with 4 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, no rend, and does 2 damage. His next one is a 1-inch range with 3 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rend, and does 1 damage. His abilities are: whenever he suffers a mortal wound, he ignores it on a 5 or 6. His next ability is if an enemy unit finishes in their pile-in move within 3 inches of the Lord of Slaanesh, they are in danger. Subtract 1 from any of their hit rolls that target this model for the remainder of the phase. His command ability is: if the Lord of Slaanesh on a demonic mount uses this ability, select a mortal Slaanesh unit within 12 inches. In your next combat phase, that unit can be selected to pile in twice and attack twice. This war scroll costs 140 points, but it's very, very important to remember that even though he's within the host of Slaanesh, his command ability only affects mortal models, and unfortunately, there's no mortal models within the host of Slaanesh. The next war score we're going to look at is the Chaos Lord of Slaanesh, movement 5 with a 4-up save, bravery 8, and 5 wounds. His melee attack is a 1-inch range with 6 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. His first ability is: if he ever suffers a mortal wound, he ignores it on a 5 or a 6. His next ability is: you can add 1 to hit if he's targeting a hero or a monster. His command ability is: if the Chaos Lord of Slaanesh uses this ability, select a mortal Slaanesh unit within 12 inches. Each time you roll a 6 or more to hit with this model in the unit, that model can immediately make 1 extra attack using that same weapon. Now again, this is another hero that only affects mortal models. Now this war scroll is only 100 points, but make sure you include him when you take mortal units because he only affects mortal Slaanesh models. Don't take him if you're taking a heavy demonic model within the host of Slaanesh. The next war scroll we're going to talk about is the Herald of Slaanesh on a Seeker Chariot, movement 12 with the 5-up save with bravery 10 and 5 wounds. He has 3 close combat attacks. The first one are the Whips, a 2-inch range with 6 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, no rend, and does 1 damage. The next one are the Claws, a 1-inch range with 2 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. The next one are the Tongues, a 1-inch range with 4 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rend, and does 1 damage. You have 4 abilities. The first one is: every time you make an attack roll with the Whips or Claws and you roll a 6, you make an additional attack. Also, the next ability is: there's no reason to roll a dice, you just run 6 inches. The next ability is: after this model makes a charge move, roll a dice for each enemy model within 1 inch. On a roll of a 4, that model suffers a mortal wound. Also, if your hero trying to hit the Herald of Slaanesh on a Seeker Chariot, you must subtract 1 to hit. Also, all your casters know the Summon Seeker on a Herald Chariot. It's a casting value of a 7, and you get 1 Herald of Slaanesh on a Seeker Chariot within 12 inches, but more than 9 inches away. Now, this War Scroll costs 100 points. It will kill a ton of infantry models as long as you can protect it. It's a glass cannon, only a 5-up save with 5 wounds, so make sure it gets there so you can put on the pain. The next War Scroll we're going to talk about today is the Herald of Slaanesh on an Exalted Seeker Chariot. Movement 12 with a 5-up save, Bravery 10 and 9 wounds. You have 3 close combat attacks. The first one are the Whips, a 2-inch range with 6 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, no rend, and does 1 damage. The next one are the Claws, a 1-inch attack with 6 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. The next one are the Tongues, a 1-inch attack with 8 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rend, and does 1 damage. We have 4 abilities. Your opponent must add 1 to the result of any battle shock test for units within 3 inches of the Exalted Seeker Chariot that charge that turn. The next ability is after this model makes a charge move, roll a dice for each enemy model within 1 inch. On a roll of a 4, that model suffers D3 mortal wounds. The next ability is each time you make a successful hit roll of a 6 with your Whips or Claws, you make an additional attack. The next ability is if a hero is trying to target your chariot, they must subtract 1 to hit him. Also, your wizards know the Summon Exalted Chariot ability. Casting value on a 7, you get an Exalted Seeker Chariot within 12 inches of your wizard, but more than 9 inches away from an enemy unit. This War Scroll only costs 160 points, and it is powerful. It puts out a ton of attacks. It will kill a whole bunch of infantry within 1 inch. I mean, it's just going to demolish your opponent. But again, it does have 9 wounds, but it only has a 5-up save. So you still have to protect this unit. The next War Scroll we're going to talk about is the Mask of Slaanesh. Movement 10 with the 4-up save, Bravery 10 and 5 wounds. The Mask has 2 close combat attacks. The first one is a 1-inch range with 6 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, -1 rend, and does 1 damage. The next one is a 1-inch range with 1 attack, hits on 3s, wounds on 5s, no rend, and does 1 damage. The Mask has 3 special abilities. The first one is, at the start of the combat phase, roll a dice. Whenever an enemy model targets the mask in the combat phase and your opponent hits the roll that matches the dice roll, that attack automatically misses. The next ability is, if the mask movement characteristic is equal to that of her target, when you roll the dice for her to attack in the combat phase, you can re-roll failed hit rolls. If her move characteristic is greater than her target, you can re-roll failed wound rolls as well. The next ability is, it is impossible to stand still. Enemy units that start their movement phase within 12 inches of the mask half their movement for that turn. Now this War Scroll's only 80 points. It is so fun. I used to remember playing with the mask before, being able to mess with people's movement, being able to get there quickly and reroll hits and wounds. I mean, this model is pretty cool. You just have to protect her. I mean, she only has 5 wounds, but again, the save is actually pretty decent. It's 4-up save. So go ahead and protect this model, let it wreak some havoc, let it have some movement, and give it a try. The last War Scroll we're going to talk about today is the Keeper of Secrets. His movement depends on how many wounds he has. He starts at 14, goes from 14 down to 12, to 10, to 8, to 6, but again starts at 14. He has a 4-up save, he has Bravery 10 and 10 wounds. He has 2 close combat attacks. The first one is range 2 inches with 6 attacks, but as he starts taking damage, it goes from a 6 to a 5, from a 5 to a 4, to a 3 to a 2, but again it starts at 6 attacks, and it hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and does 2 damage. The next close combat attack has 2-inch range with 2 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 2s, goes to a 3, from a 3 to a 4, but again starts at a 2, with -2 to rend, and does D3 damage. The Keeper of Secrets has an ability called the Dark Temptations. In your opponent's hero phase, the Keeper of Secrets can tempt an enemy hero with a gift of power. If the tempting offer is accepted, that hero can make up to 6 additional attacks with one of its weapons this turn. However, if the hero accepts the gifts of power, and any of those hit rolls for that weapon are a 1 before modifiers, its soul is immediately devoured by the Keeper of Secrets and is slain. The next ability is you can re-roll wound rolls of a 1 with the Keeper of Secrets. His command ability is, if the Keeper of Secrets uses this ability, select a Slaanesh demon unit within 12 inches. In your next combat, that unit can pile in again and attack twice. Your Keeper of Secrets knows 3 spells. He knows the Arcane Bolt, the Mystic Shield, and he also knows his own special ability, which is, on a casting value of a 6, if successfully cast, roll 2 dice. Each enemy unit within 6 inches of the caster suffers D3 mortal wounds if the bravery is less than the total rolled. All your casters know the Summon Keeper of Secrets, which is a casting value of a 9, and you get to place a Keeper of Secrets within 12 inches of the caster, but more than 9 inches away from enemy models. Now this war scroll is 280 points, and I love the Dark Temptations ability. The Slaanesh is all about tempting your opponent, and this is the only role I've ever read that actually tempts your opponent to do something that can harm them and help you. This model is awesome. Alright, so that brings us to the end of a complete overview of the host of Slaanesh, and as you guys can tell, their models look awesome. They are very fast. They hit like a hammer. The only downfall is they have a 5-up save and they're squishy. If you can protect them and you can get them into combat, they're going to do so much damage. But again, thank you so much for all your time and listening to another video brought to you by Dorkdom Gaming. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.